There's a lot more nuance to level 1 invades than people give it credit for. Many players, especially depending on region, will be a lot more inclined to invade every game versus invade almost never, but there are a lot of factors you should be taking into account before you just do it mindlessly. The main things to consider are, does your team have a high range, strong CC, especially a pull? That's always going to be great for setting up an invade. Or do you at least have some high base damage, because everybody's going to be level 1, so you need to have something that works strong just at that point, such as like a Karma, because Karma can do RQ and that does a lot of damage, plus as the AoE slow, which is nice as well. If you are going to do the early invade, you want to make sure you're grouping together as 5 with your CC member in front, whoever has the longest range CC. And you generally want to avoid vision pockets, get there as early as you can. Depending on who you're playing for to kill, you can choose either to go top side or bot side. Let's say the enemy top laner is going TP Ghost, that might be a reason to go top side instead of invading bot. But the odds of you finding somebody is higher if you go bot side, so you have to take that into account. However, most people just autopilot go to bot side. Just think about which one you actually want to go for instead of going to the same side every single time. You also want to consider how strong the enemy's counter invade is. Do they have a Morgana, Olaf, Darius? Anything that's going to make it really difficult for you to brute force a kill. Do they have dashes that'll be able to avoid your Nautilus hook, such as a Lucian E? Do they have flash? Or do they not take flash, like I was talking about earlier with the top laner that went TP Ghost? Generally, with an early invade, your goals are to get a summoner spell and or a kill. You don't necessarily have to get that though. If you think your level 1 is really safe, you could use it just to get a deep ward, since you know the enemies aren't going to be able to stop you. However, you will have to consider that if the enemies see you, they will probably deep ward on the other side of the map as well. However, all of that was for early invades. What about late invades level 1? The difference here is you're not going to have all 5 members typically, because people are taking a huge risk with that since they're going to be losing minions. If you're going for the late invade, you're looking for those kind of champions I listed earlier that are great in counter invading. The reason is because the enemies aren't going to be able to get out nearly as easily. With an early invade, they just back off because they see you coming way ahead of time. But with a late invade, you're waiting for them to start the camp and they're already committed. The important thing to note with late invading is it has to work. It's much higher risk than an early invade. You have to get the kill and then get the camp. If you fail to do so, then it's going to be much less valuable because you're having to spend a whole lot of time walking back to your side of the jungle, or even worse, if you die, the enemy jungler gets their camp and the kill gold, along with your laner not being there at the very start of lane like they're supposed to be. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into some examples from multiple elos of good invades and bad invades so you can see some ideas for what I'm talking about. In this VOD, we have Platinum. Got a Blitzcrank, Pantheon, Udyr, plenty of level 1 champions that can do a lot. But the problem is we're a little bit late, Pantheon's not there quite as early as I'd like, and Brand definitely isn't. It can still work though, as long as everyone's going the same direction, then it's fine. But we have this, we have a little bit of some Scooby-Doo action, splitting up looking for clues, 2 going one way, 3 going the other, and it's much easier to get caught by the Thresh doing this. If we all went with the Blitzcrank, then everyone would be good. Rammus shows up really late, but we can't really pick him off there because Udyr doesn't want to start E. That's completely understandable. It would really mess up his clear if he were to do so. So it's correct for him to not do that. Thankfully, Thresh ends up getting hooked by the Blitzcrank and they're able to pick up a kill. The problem with all of this is that the top laner is going to be late to lane. Because it's been extended for so long, everyone started it late. But at least they get the kill. Overall, the idea to do the invade is good. It's just mis-executed a little bit. The second example comes from Emerald. We've got a lot of great CC going on here with Xerath, Pantheon, Amumu, Trundle, Jhin. Everybody's got some CC if they want to use it. However, the problem is the enemy team has a lot of ways to deny the invade. They've got Camille that can E out or E in depending on what happens. Ukshin has an easy time getting in and out. Senna can also throw a chain, it's AoE. There's a lot of things to be kind of concerned of. So generally I would avoid invading here, but it can work. The problem, however, is not everyone is on the same page. Some people are still coming from base while others are in the brush. Amumu's queuing in without complete vision. It's a bit of a mess. You could still back out here though, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But Amumu continues to try to force the invade without all 5 members, has to burn flash, and then enemies start to collapse, and it causes his teammates to be in a really bad position as well. Enemy team gets first blood, it's a nightmare. The takeaway from this is that even if you think your invade is good, make sure you have all 5 members. If you don't have all 5 members, then just back off. It's not that big of a deal. I would rather you miss out on an invade because you don't have everybody than to go in for a really bad invade that's forced, end up causing a situation like this, and now you're playing from behind. In the beginning, the only reason you wanted to do the invade was just to find a nice little advantage at the start of the game. You don't necessarily have to have it, but it helps. The last example is from one of my own games. In this game, the enemies had shown bot side, so I go and ward the enemy raptors, and I'm waiting for the Rengar to start his red buff. He shows on the ward there, so I know for certain he's going to be there, and pretty soon I ping for the Sejuani to come help me. Sejuani's very strong early, she's got Ignite, we can make this work. Enemy team has a Mordekaiser top lane, so while he's not the weakest champion in the early game, he's not particularly scary. All I need to do now is I need to wait for the Rengar to start the buff, give it a few seconds so that his abilities are on cooldown, and then go in. Now that it hit 133, I go in, everything's on cooldown, and we're able to win this fight. It does get pretty close, I will admit, but I still think overall it was a good idea. Force them off, I'm able to get the red buff, and the Rengar has to back off while also getting killed by the Sejuani because he didn't want to admit that he lost the camp.